All right, coming up on San Diego Living, look at some healthy alternatives, food that will satisfy your cravings, and tips on how to break bad snacking habits. It's all about eating healthy to feel full. That's coming up right after the break.
We all have our favorite comfort foods. You know, that thing that you go to when you're a little tired, maybe a little emotional. But what's the long-term consequences of those comfort foods? Jeanette Bronée joins us here this morning. She wrote the book called it's Eat to Feel Full.
Yes.
The idea being we need to get back to treating food as nourishment and not as some kind of crutch.
Exactly.
So why do we crave certain foods?
Well, as human beings, we need fat, we need glucose.
Right.
And we need fiber to feel full and satisfied and nourished. The thing is, we translate it into things that we remember, that made us feel good, and so on and so forth.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, the fact that foods are very much tied to our history and to our emotions.
Yes.
How serious a problem is that? I mean, how hard a connection is that to break?
You know, it's interesting that you say how hard is it to break, because many people really struggle with it. But the way I break it down is to say, well, if you can connect some of those memories, like I was like craving fruit tart, and I didn't quite connect it, but then I realized my mom and I always had fruit tart on Saturday afternoons.
Oh, of course.
And once I connected that, the fruit tart had a different meaning to me.
See, now I connect, honest to goodness, Rocky Road ice cream with my grandfather.
There you go.
He loved that. And now I know what the connection is, and I know it makes me feel good, and every time I eat a bowl of it, I think about my grandfather.
Yes.
And I think, oh, that's so cool, you know.
Yeah. So if you want to break that habit because that food is not good for you. No, but no, you want to keep the memory.
Right, exactly. Well, I want to keep the Rocky Road ice cream too.
There you go.
But, you know,
but if you also want to get healthy.
Yes, and obviously I struggle with this, and so I know what you're talking about.
Right.
Now, the emotional eating, that's interesting too.
Right.
That people are, if they're down, they're depressed, they tend to crave certain foods.
Yeah.
What do you do about that? How do you replace those?
That's another really good question, because we tend to try to struggle with it once we're in it. But I sort of backtrack and go before that and say, what are the triggers? So if we can go back, and one of the things I say is eat your meals. Get your really good meals in, because then the physical cravings don't come in and haunt you as much, right? Because if we're feeling full and nourished from our meals by eating real food, then there's a much better chance that we are feeling full and not falling prey to the cookie jar.
So that's some planning. You've got some great examples here, some foods that you really like.
Yes.
So oatmeal.
Yes.
We hear a lot about the virtues of oatmeal.
Yep.
That was an old school food.
It was. And for me, when I was a kid, in the summer, we had what now is called raw oatmeal.
Right.
But back then it was just rolled oats.
Right.
And one of the ways is that if you're in a rush, you can actually bring it with you in a jar, in a thermos or something like that. But in the summertime, especially, or in warm weather, as you guys have here, you might not want hot. So you can use the rolled oats, add some nuts and seeds, and let it soak either overnight. You know, I'm adding some hemp seeds to it as well. And you get sort of like, you can add many things. You can add coconut, you can all kinds of things. I use a nut milk. And then you really just add that and let it sit for a minute or two.
So it doesn't have to cook?
It doesn't have to cook.
Oh, okay.
It becomes so easy, and if you want to bring it, you just mix it all in here.
Now, before I run out of time, I see one of my favorite things over here, guacamole and chips.
Yeah.
If that's on the table here, this may not necessarily be a bad thing.
You know what? We misunderstand fat. And fat, if we are eating good fats, especially plant-based fat, we actually get much more nourished, feel those cravings. They go away from those fatty foods.
And avocado is very satisfying.
It's very satisfying and is very healthy. It's high in fiber. It's a great fat.
And the chips, in this case, they look like some kind of a whole grain chip or something?
Yeah, they're a whole grain. They're a corn and sprouted grain, organic. I always suggest that when it comes to that.
I've only got about a minute left. Watermelon.
Yes. Sugar cravings.
Yes.
Right?
I'm a cookie guy. I'm a cake guy.
Yeah. So what you can do is get some watermelon smoothie or juice, or eat the watermelon, have a taste.
I will happily do that.
It feels nice and sweet, but it's also very hydrating.
That's really delicious.
And it's actually high in nutrients. It's really, really high in all kinds of yummy nourishing nutrients. However, the real thing is it satisfies your sweet
How
craving.
can folks get the book? It's Eat to Feel Full.
Yes.
And Jeanette Bronée is the author that you're looking for. Where can they find it?
You can find it online, and you can find it at the A store locally as well.
The A store.
Yep.
And just go online and look for Eat to Feel Full by Jeanette Bronée, and it's Bronee.
Yes.
Very good. Well, that's wonderful. And Heather, come on in here, because this is right up your alley.
I love me some guacamole.
Yeah, I know, but you're not an emotional eater. I mean, you know, you and I talk about this and we joke about it. I am. I mean, I'm the first one to admit it, which is probably why you're tall and thin and I'm not.
Well, here's the thing. I think that you've nailed this perfectly. When you don't feel full, you constantly have that craving.
Yes. I hear it all the time. People are like, I'm hungry all the time.
Well, get the book, folks, and have a great weekend.